Hi everyone, thanks for joining us again. I have an exciting, interesting conversation today with Hattie. I've been following Hattie's journey on LinkedIn for a long while, and the success that Hattie has built with her community, the impact that she's delivering on LinkedIn for her expertise, which we will get to know all now. It's absolutely impressive, and I'm sure we all will learn a lot of things about personal branding, utilizing LinkedIn, building communities, and job security as well. So first of all, hi Hattie, thank you for joining us today, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, likewise, Ehab. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Can you introduce yourself to our viewers and give us a bit of a background of who you are?
Yeah, so I'm Hattie the PMM. As Ehab said, I'm active on LinkedIn and also on YouTube. And I create content for product marketing managers specifically on how to secure our careers, especially within tech. And my go-to principle is build your career and build your personal brand internally where you work. So you build authority, but secondary is to build your personal brand on LinkedIn. So that way the market always knows that you exist. And that came from a complete just fear of mine, where a year ago I saw my colleagues get laid off and there were 5 rounds of layoffs that happened. Okay. And I was so scared, Ehab, that I was like, you know what, I need to secure my career because to be fair, like I'm not married. I don't have someone to lean on. I don't have rich parents. So I was like, if I got laid off, who are the 5 people that I would call up tomorrow to get me to, help me get a new job? And I couldn't name one. So I quickly had to act. I was like, I need to secure my career within tech, especially as a PMM. So since the start of last year, I was creating content whilst fully employed and building up my name just organically over LinkedIn, making sure that everyone kind of knew that I existed. That was just my main goal. Yes. And then, towards the end of the year, I'd built up quite a following that I was able to quit my job and just focus on building now a community for product marketing managers called productmarketers.com, which helps PMMs like myself build their personal brands to secure their careers.
Absolutely brilliant. And I really love, Hattie, what you described there, putting the personal circumstances into really what made you make that decision, because I probably speak for most of us and most of the people who potentially are watching this. We invest a lot in our careers and in the time we put for the companies we represent, the organizations. And as you rightly so expressed, at the end of the day, some organizations do look at the numbers, and that sentimental relationship is no longer part of the equation when they make these decisions. So you mentioned the 5 rounds of layoffs, and you've seen friends impacted, and obviously the general atmosphere really on when you look at LinkedIn, people open to work, etc. Were there like a specific moment where you said, I need to do something about this? Did you see like a circumstance of someone around you, close to you, or an incident that triggered you to go to the direction that you've gone through?
There was. So one of my very good colleagues who I absolutely adore him, and I used to work for an amazing firm. And whenever I was out in Toronto, I would meet up with him, go for dinners. I met his child, it was so sweet. So there was this one day and he's an exceptional graphic designer. Let me make that very, very clear. Exceptional. So there was just a random Tuesday and I was just on Slack because that was our internal platform. And all of a sudden I get a message from him. So whenever I get a message from him, I open it really quickly. We all have our best buds that we work with. So I was like, yeah, let me see what he says. And he was like, it was good to work with you. And I was like, what? And then he was like, yeah, I was literally just told that I was let go. And I was literally like, what the fuck? And then whilst I wrote that sentence, his screen went black and it said deactivated. I don't know if anyone has ever seen.
Oh, you mean like during Slack. While you are working?
Right. Yes, during me messaging him, because when people are let go and you're on Slack and then you can see that their photo is grayed out, it's black and white, it says deactivated. But I actually saw it happen in front of me, where one minute his account was live, and then the next minute, whilst I'm typing to him, like, what the fuck is happening? It went black. It went like deactivated. And I was like literally shaking. Ehab, I was like, what is happening right now? So that's when, the announcement was made. But I'm telling you, I don't know what it did. And I think it's because I think naturally I'm such an empath that I really do care about people. I put humans at like the center of everything that I do, that I just started shaking. And I was like, what is happening? Because he's exceptional. Like, he's not mid. He's like an exceptional graphic designer. He was so good at his job, so reliable, so amazing to work with. And I was like, how have they got rid of him? But they've kept another guy who just talks all day, does fucking nothing. And why is he kept and like even promoted, whilst the person on the ground who's doing the work, doing great work, is let go? So then I was like, I'm playing a completely different game to what is actually happening out here. So I felt the motivation literally that day after that happened. I was like, I have to protect myself in this, because like you said, especially PMMs, we focus so much on how much value we can add to the company. How do we secure our career by just doing, when actually some of the time, and probably most of the time, I would say, it actually comes down to what do we do on our career to secure ourselves? How do we actually act, and what is the strategy that we have on our career? So that moment scared me.
At that time, were you doing any online presence? Were you building your personal brand at all? Or from that moment where you actually started to work on that?
So up until that moment, I had done bits and bobs of posting online. So basically I was posting when I got a new promotion or when I completed the certification. Basically what usual, like most people do on LinkedIn, where they just post a random bit of content every 3 months or whatever. So that was me. That was literally me.
That's all of us, Hattie, to be honest with you. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, it's really common. I think a lot of people still treat LinkedIn as a resume platform, or the platform you go to once you've left your job or lost your job or you're looking for a new job. So that was the moment that I was like, I generally just started posting from then on, which was like the end of 2023. I think layoffs started. They usually do layoffs either straight before Christmas or into January. It was right at the start of December.
Oh, wow. You're absolutely right. To be honest, the time that I got back to LinkedIn was when a colleague of mine said, your website, when you have your website on your profile, was for an old past employer. And then when I logged in, LinkedIn looked completely different. So probably the last time I must have logged in was like 6 years ago. So it was a different game, the social media elements into it, the content. And back then they even had the stories like, the Instagram and Snapchat. They took it away, unfortunately. I like them. But it's a different platform now. And I think it's exactly like you say, it's absolutely essential to be present and present yourself. And to be honest with you, it even benefits the company you work for, because your visibility also reflects positively on them as well. So now probably, I'm sure you follow this space the past couple of weeks, Meta, and it's usually companies of that size, they're redirecting their moderation. And I've already been seeing the posts of people being let go, even though their performance, they were doing the job they were tasked to do, because that department existed all overnight. Because of policy change, it doesn't exist. And it's really hard to break in when you see their experiences and stories. So what are your thoughts on this process? Do people reach out to you? Do they tell you their experiences? I'm interested in your view on both on the business organizational element when such changes happen, and also the human element of people on the other side.
Oh my gosh, so many DMs come in to me because I'm very vocal on securing your career and really just being like, you are the focus of your life, and therefore stop putting a company that is willing to let you go at the hands of your life and your salary and, you paying for your kids. So the amount of DMs that I get from people who have been laid off, especially at huge firms, especially FANG, is insane. And especially I feel really bad, really, really bad when I hear the stories and I read the stories from people who are like, you know, me and my partner were let go at the exact same time. And it's horrible. And they're like, we have 2 kids and we live in San Fran. It's super expensive. Or we live in a place that, you know, what do we do? Like, how do I like speed up the process? I think because also I'm a natural empath. I just take it to heart. Like, I really do. I really feel for them, like really feel for them. And it's really tough to see these stories happen because it's like, I know that if people just knew that they could actually have the permission to work on their career the way that I have, then they would feel so much better and they would really have secured themselves and felt like they had a buffer. For me, all I wanted to do was create like a castle around a moat around a castle. I wanted to create a moat around me and my career. So it's really tough to see. And I really feel for all of the people being laid off. I think as of like 2022, layoffs.fyi website has said there's been over like 500,000 people laid off. At no fault of their own.
Mostly in tech, Hattie? Is that
mostly in tech? That's right. Yeah, mostly in tech, and predominantly the larger firms. So it's really tough because, you know, they probably joined the Googles and the Metas thinking, you know, I'm solid, you know, they make money, they're known, you know, it's all going to be great. And they learn the processes and the principles as according to Meta or according to Google or whatever the large organization is. So then when they're on the job market and they're starting to apply for startups or even mid-enterprise organizations, they're like, this is a completely different ballgame. I don't even have the skills for this. And also equally, their employer probably doesn't allow them to pass probation within the first 3 months. So it's a really tough place to be in. And this is why I'm always saying when I do talks is you are the product, my friend, you are the product. So how do we then install the skills required for you to be employable, but also for you to have secured yourself in the long term? So how do we install the skills like a piece of software into you as a product for you to then utilize in the short term to get you to the goal that you're aiming for? And then we utilize and implement the skills that is required for you in the long run. But the problem is, a lot of people don't like to take that internal audit because the internal audit is like looking in the fucking mirror and being like, where are my faults? Where are my weaknesses? And how do I address it? And it's really tough when you're in a moment of scarcity to take a breath and authentically be like, you know what? Okay, I have these gaps. How do I fill these gaps as quickly as humanly possible? So then I can also utilize that in conversations with the right people in my network. Or how do I utilize those skills so then I can create a brand new network if you don't already have an existing one? So then you can be a cut above the rest and you're not just one of the hundreds of people applying via LinkedIn for a job posting, but you're standing out in the moment of like sheer hardness. So these are the sorts of things that I try and get people to think about when they're in that moment where they're like, I'm so like, what do? I just apply to everywhere. And it's like, look, just take a breath. Really, like give yourself some compassion. And one book that I read, which really was a game changer for me, because most people who know me know I'm a bit of like, you know, I don't know, like I'm a strong woman, whatever. So one of the things that I've had trouble with in the past was leaning into my emotions. So equally, I was just a doer and I resented any feelings of emotion. So even if sadness would come up, I was like, I'm not going to feel sad. I'm just going to continue moving forward. So one book that I read, which really was a game changer for me, and I recommend everyone, especially people in tech, read, is a book called Self-Compassion by Kristin Neff. Because what that allowed me to do was to build that self-compassion into myself and just to give myself that care when I needed it most. And I think it's really tough, especially if you're the breadwinner or if you're, you know, like me, you're just independent on yourself, that you need to give yourself that care in those moments. So then you can have the fresh head, you know, the abundance mindset for when you start applying to then come in it with like a really good aura around you. And you don't exude neediness, because neediness just like, no one likes neediness. No one is attracted to that. And it's really tough when you're in that, you know, job market where you're like, I need a job before 3 months. I had someone in my DMs, for example. They said, and they're a good friend, very good friend now. They said to me, I'm on a work visa. I've just been let go. I need to secure a new job before the end of the month. Otherwise, it is not looking good as to me staying in this country. And bear in mind, he's just had a newborn baby and he has his wife with him.
Wow.
This is what really just made me so empathetic towards people who've been laid off, because I did everything that I humanly could to get him so many job interviews and to really ace the assignments. Like, all of this was unpaid, bear in mind. I was just like, I just need to help you.
No, I see what you do online. It's amazing. It's really amazing.
Thank you.
And what you just there, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it was a tough process because, he updated me on absolutely everything. He was accepted for the job, and then the company was like, we can't sponsor you. So then it meant that he actually did have to go back to his home country with his baby, with his wife.
They ended up leaving.
And these are the stories. Yeah, it's so sad. And these are the stories that I guess they're not shown publicly. They're in my fucking DMs. So this is why I'm like,
but
they
never
exist,
talked about. Yeah.
but they're never spoken about. And the companies are like, I wash my hands. The companies are like, I wash my hands of these people. I don't care. Like, if you are on a work visa and you are just reliant on this one job for you to stay in the country, it is wild to me that you are not acting on your career as well as you're acting in your career. Like, both need to happen at the exact same time. So this is what fuels my content, Ehab. I'll be real. This is what gets me up in the morning and keeps me motivated. And this is what fuels what content I create. I speak to those people.
What you said there about that book with self-love and self-care, this is really so overlooked. And at the same time, it's so essential and important. And we all need to apply that, even if it's just a little bit. And I talk to people and I interact with them as well. And sometimes your passion for your work can, take over everything else. And it could even impact your mental health, your mental well-being, your relationships, working on yourself, or, on your body, on your spirit, on anything. And if you had that self-care lens, then you'll be able to balance it out. And that really goes in line with what you described. Well, because you have a job, it doesn't mean you shouldn't invest in your personal brand and image, because that reflects on you. It's part of your journey, your career. And upskilling, which we will talk about in more detail for product marketing and the kind of skills they need, because exactly like you described, if they've been working for Google all this time, they are working on that narrow tunnel with the skills, maybe not really applicable to the wider market, which we will discuss later on as well. So you shared these stories, heartfelt stories, your experience, people you work with. And like I said during the intro of the podcast, it's in front of me from the outset, from the outside, seeing your own journey. So you do as you do, not as I say. So you put it into practice. And I see how your community interact with you. You have genuine friendships, if I could say, genuine relationship, and you even meet in person and you do all that real, beyond the virtual, beyond the keyboard connections. So when you reach that moment, you said, okay, this is something I care about. This is something I need to speak about. I need to build my community. How did you approach it? How did you plan your content? How did you say, okay, this is now becoming serious. Let me put a plan, execute. How did you go about this? How did you plan your content, putting yourself out there on what you do?
Yeah, so I took this principle from one of my coaches, Amelia Sordell. She has like over 200,000 followers on LinkedIn. She's very much known for being a LinkedIn coach. And her principle was, what is your goal? Who do you need to attract to hit that goal? And then what content do you need to create in order to attract the right person? So at the time, when my friend had just been laid off and then the Slack, was deactivated and I was just completely shocked, I figured out, well, my goal is to attract recruiters. But then I have job offers coming in on a monthly basis. That's all I was aiming for. Like, at least if I could get one a month, that'd be great.
Okay.
And then what was the content that who was the person that I would need to get in front of was the second question. So then it was, I would need to get in front of senior PMMs. I need to get in front of the directors of product marketing. I need to get in front of product managers as well. I need to get in front of recruiters and talent acquisition people. And then the third was, okay, so what is the content that I would need to create in order to get the attraction and the eyeballs of these people who would get me closer to my goal of getting me or offering me, conversations for job offers? And the content was product marketing. It was like me showing my rationale and strategy and my foundational and expert knowledge on product marketing and being unabashedly, unashamedly awesome at it, because I know that I'm a very good product marketing manager. I've had 10 years plus in tech. Like, I know that is me. So it was the one thing that I'd never done before. And I was like, okay, let me just start to share my knowledge about my learnings, my failures, what was in my calendar last week that maybe I can discuss as a talking point if I was really stuck for content. And I just wanted to put out a couple posts a week. But I started to see people really resonating. I started to see the right people that I want to attract resonating with my post and also DMing me to a point where 6 months in, I had at least one job conversation or job offer a week. And I started really building up a pool of other PMMs who wanted to learn from me as well, which was an unexpected byproduct. Because at the time, I was literally just putting out content for product marketing and kicking up a YouTube channel where I was speaking about all of my learnings free. Like, I'm telling you, the stuff that I put out is as good, if not better, than people's paid versions because I paid for it. And it was amazing seeing this pool and an audience just growing organically. And I was like, whoa, this is awesome. But also equally, it's happening. I was like, it's happening. But equally, I was like, I started to see the recruiters in my DMs and started to have those conversations where I got very, very close to jumping ship from the company I was working at. But that was my rationale when it came to content, because I think a lot of people feel completely overwhelmed. They're like, where do I start? What do I post about? Do I post about my cat and my dog, or like, is it about me? And maybe you felt the same, Ehab, because like you post a lot of content on YouTube and LinkedIn. But how do you go about building out your content?
The challenge for me is having that balance between talking about the technology and talking to people about different experiences that they would have in an organization. And to be honest with you, I think my content is still going through a maturing journey. So I'm still fine-tuning the message and fine-tuning what I'm trying to talk to. But from the very beginning, as a starting point, I didn't want only to talk to technical people. I didn't want to only make exclusive. I wanted to be more inclusive, because what I do in the realm of digital transformation and now AI as well, it touches everyone, it impacts everyone. So I wanted to pick a lane and a language that everyone who would listen, who would get access to that, get some value. The thing we have on our field, we end up with technical people talking to technical people, making the conversation too difficult, too detailed, and you lose out at that moment of maybe spark someone's interest. Oh, that sounds interesting, where they can go and dig deeper. So I'm trying to take that lane. This year, I've been meeting great people on a podcast format, like the conversation we have here. And if you think about it, all what we discussed now helps anyone, really. Not if someone in tech, product marketing. These concepts would impact people positively regardless where they are in their career. So, I'm still fine-tuning, still maturing it and see what I learn from that journey. And I learn from people like yourself and other colleagues I have on LinkedIn as well, who post great content.
Yeah, I love that. And equally, I'm going through the same thing. So I feel like I'm probably a year behind you, honestly, where I'm like, should I stay niche for product marketing managers, or should I branch out to the whole of tech? Because like you said, the principles apply to anyone and their job. But for me, I think what's unique about product marketing managers and the issues that we face specifically is a lot of people and a lot of organizations don't understand what product marketers do.
True.
When you ask, like, would you, Ehab, or would you foresee anyone asking a developer, what do you do? No, right?
Yeah, people kind of get it, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
They don't know the specifics, but they would know a developer would write an application. So
Yeah.
simple as that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Even a simple answer is that they would typically know. But when it came to product marketing, most people would be like, "Oh, do they market the product or what?"
True.
And then what is it different between a product marketing manager and a marketer in general?
Which we will discuss in detail today as well.
Yes.
Amazing.
Now
that we are in the content space, I would like to discuss a little bit more around content before we move towards the product marketing side of things and pick your experience and brain on that. Have you found particular formats of content that resonate better with people? Was it text, images, video? I know the video is somewhat of a recent development on the world of LinkedIn. The past few months, it's been growing. Now they have the video tab. But from your experience, what do you see more impactful?
So I tried all different content types, especially last year, where I posted over 300 times in 2024. And what I recognized was it's not about the content type, but it's about who I'm trying to attract with the content and what kind of content they consume. Yeah. So what I found was graphics do very well, especially for people within tech, because they like technical knowledge, as we were discussing, and they like to see in-depth thinking and strategies around specific topics. I naturally gear towards making one point in every post, so not making it too convoluted.
Okay.
But what has worked really well for me have been graphical posts and carousels that have either tables or something that would be useful for them to learn on every single page of that carousel.
Okay. I still don't have access to that, unfortunately, that carousel. Do you have to post it as PDF, by the way, for carousels?
Yes. Okay. So for carousels, it actually is under the document button. So you attach a document and then you attach it as a PDF with different slides, and then that becomes the carousel.
Oh, thank you. So that's a thing I learned from today, and I'll start trying that.
I would also lean into, if you're just getting started creating content, I had a lot of overwhelm a year ago. I was like, do I need to do everything and all different types of posts, blah, blah, blah. I just went in with what I felt comfortable with, which at the time was just text posts. I just wanted to put out text posts and that was it. And then over a month or 2 months, I started building up graphics. I used Canva at the time to create graphics to go along with it. I hid my face. I did not show my face in any post. And now I'm at a point where I feel so comfortable getting on video and showing my face in group photos or whatever, that I'm able to post those now. So I would lean into what is it that won't give you overwhelm? What is it that will, be the most frictionless way of you just starting posting and going? And then you can hone it with time with what feels good or what resonates with your target market.
Amazing. So if someone is starting today, they listen to our conversation and they thought, oh, well, I'm missing out. I need to start building my personal brand on LinkedIn. What lessons would you share with them of things to do? Best practices, things that worked for you and you see it working for other people. And also maybe things that people shouldn't do on LinkedIn that would slow down their growth.
So the things that they definitely should do is firstly, learn how to be a people person. A lot of people, especially in my DMs, they will only try and speak to me when they want something. And it really turns me off. It's like the equivalent of saying, I'm going to get married at the end of the year. I'm just going to go to the gym once before my wedding. And I will expect all the results then.
I wish it was that easy.
If only, right?
Yeah.
But no, it's a case of like, learn how to be a good person and learn how to interact with someone consistently. And I think this is where maybe I'm a bit different to most people, which is like, I actually just want to make friends, and I come with it with that lens. And I think that's the number one goal or like key learning that I would tell anyone who's listening to this is actually learn how to genuinely make friends. And there are books on it, like how to make friends and influence people, for example. Or there are courses if you want to take them. But if you come in it with the mindset of like, I just want to make friends out of this, then it leans you to doing the right thing. So if it leans you to doing the right thing in like, how do I now post a comment on this person's post in a friendly sort of way? How do I DM them like they are my friends? And therefore they will naturally want to help you through reciprocity. So through LinkedIn, it's not a game of like numbers or they can help me out or like take. It's more about you being a good person, giving to the community that you want to build. And then by natural reciprocity, they will want to help you. And the thing is, you have to think of yourself as a long-term, person, hopefully on this earth. Like, God willing, we all have many years in our future. So don't think about it as like, what can I get from them right now? But also, how can I create and leverage this relationship with this person for the long haul? And then that will exude in everything that you create. So then if you want to associate yourself with the second point is associating yourself with the words that you want to be associated with. Okay. This sounds counterintuitive, but most of the time people let their personal brand get built by reactive nature and not in a proactive nature. So they will let other people define who they are. And I like to say, take the time to write down the words that you want associated with yourself and then do everything that's congruent with those words. So for example, with me, I associate myself with quality, with useful, with down to earth, with like unabashedly herself and unashamedly herself.
Yeah.
And everything that I do is aligned with that. So I'm not going to put out a shit piece of content just because I have to. I'm not going to like put out like a terrible YouTube video just because it's a Tuesday. I'm just like, I will put out what I need to put out, which is aligned with me and what people think of me and therefore who I build myself as in their minds, because sometimes it is a perception game. And this is what I've learned from people who were laid off. It's not necessarily that they didn't have the skills, it's because they weren't perceived to be useful or valuable to the company when tech layoffs came about. So perception is a very key one. And then if you use these principles, you can really lean into creating content that is aligned with you. Where people go wrong, Ehab, is when they have this like weird sort of time frame in their minds that they're like, I need to post regardless. And it's like, well, now at this point, you're just posting anything to anyone and it's not useful. It's not useful to anyone, right? I think the wrong way of doing it is like thinking, what can I gain out of other people? What can I take, and not giving valuable information that's actually useful for the people that you want to attract. So bearing that in mind is like the key difference between the ones who are exceptional and the ones who are terrible. And it's definitely a 80-20 Pareto principle of that.
I agree with all what you said, but do you know what the sad thing is? Which forces people sometimes to not do what you suggested there, is the way the algorithms are set, which I believe they need resolving on all platforms. They want people to be using it all the time, posting all the time, and they are kind of indirectly or even directly telling people quantity over quality, which I don't think it's right myself, and I agree with you. So the message that you gave us is focus on your personal brand, and that should be associated with quality. Don't be distracted with numbers, which that's
100%.
what leads.
100%. Because like you said, business metrics aren't always aligned with social media metrics. So just because you're getting the metrics, which is engagement, doesn't actually mean that it's transparent in what your goal is business metrics wise. And the goal of the social media platform is to get engagement, is to get likes, is to get comments, is to get content out of you as a user of that platform. Now, it's not necessarily aligned with what your goal is, which maybe your goal is to attack 10 hiring managers that you know are hiring for a job right now. And therefore, it's not actually a numbers game. So one thing that I teach PMMs in as part of my community is align your incentives. So align the incentives of what you want with either the platform or the goal and the person that you're aiming for. So for example, aligned incentives with the platform is creating very good high quality content that then engages with the right people. So then it will align with what your goal is. The social media platform just wants anyone to post anything that they can then use, but it's not useful to everyone. So that's a complete waste of time.
Amazing. That's really a great tip there. That distinguish between your business objectives and what the social media wants. And I think we all need to be reminded of that and not get distracted. And one point you mentioned there, Hattie, around the confidence, being yourself, and you started not initially posting graphics, not your face, and then you had that confidence, and you started to have group photos, and then your own personal headshots, photos, and videos. You also shared some updates some months ago that I found really exciting and interesting, which I believe is a comedy improv that you've done in London. And you talked about it, and you talked about that experience, how it's like, things you learned. And I found it fascinating, and it's very brave, to be honest with you, to be like just seeing the photos you put there, to be on stage, making people laugh. I think it's not anyone who could do this. So how was that experience like for you? And what did you learn about yourself, and what new things you learned by joining that course?
Firstly, highly recommend everyone does improv comedy. Like, everyone should take an improv comedy class once in their lifetime, because I took the very first class right when the layoffs were happening. Actually, maybe it was probably a month or two before the layoffs were happening, because I had recognized that one of my skills, again, as part of my skill audit that I took, was I had recognized that the sales team don't like me because I just wasn't a good communicator with them. And I had recognized that, and I was like, okay, so let me learn communication skills. Let me learn how to be a bit more like quick on my feet and just think off the top of my head. And therefore I wasn't stammering and be like, I don't know. So I wanted to put the reps in. I wanted to get the practice in. And I saw improv comedy as a very good vessel for that. Because one thing that people ask me is, oh my God, Hattie, you're an amazing public speaker. Like, how do you do it? It's because I say, I don't practice public speaking when I'm public speaking. I practice public speaking through improv comedy. And I think it's a nice mindset to get into, which is like, if you want to do speaking gigs, or if you want to elevate your career, why are you practicing when it matters? I'm not going to practice in front of a room of 500 people, the PMMs that I spoke to at end of last year at PMA London Summit, which is like the biggest conference for product marketing managers. I'm not going to practice there, dude. I'm going to get the reps in with improv comedy. So as scary as it was, and as shy as I was when I was actually in the class, I found it to be the most liberating place to be weird and goofy, and to also just be myself, and also to have people just yes and me to anything that I was saying. And it was a beautiful place to not only practice the skill of communication, but also to come out and just be, I don't know, just to be silly. And I think sometimes in tech, and maybe you know this, Ehab, with the people you've spoken to, sometimes in tech, we can get bogged down in the technicalities of things. We can get bogged down in the day-to-day life of things. And it's nice to just have an outlet that's completely loosey-goosey, silly as hell, and having that place to make friends, learn the skill. And then I allowed myself to perform improv comedy twice now in front of a stage in an audience, in London, where actually I was actually quite funny, which I was really surprised by. I was like, oh my God, I'm so fucking funny. Yeah. And now I just use the skills in everything that I do. So I use the skills in my content creation through YouTube content. I use the skills on podcasts. I use the skills in the meetings that I had internally with very senior private equity executives who were like, Hattie, what's this number? Hattie, what is the strategy for this? You know, interrogation. If anyone's worked with private equity, holy hell, it's like ba, 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 ba. So again, it was like allowing me to just think off the top of my head and not get bogged down in, oh my God, I'm an imposter. I don't know what I'm saying. It's like, no, it's like you just relinquish the control. So I think improv comedy is a skill that I think everyone should go through. And if we look at the top CEOs, like for example, the guy who runs Dollar Shave Club, and he had the most famous YouTube video that went viral, which was hilarious for Dollar Shave Club. And now they're a unicorn company. He said that improv comedy was a skill that he had built that has led to the success of Dollar Shave Club being super famous worldwide. So if it's good enough, I think personally, if it's good enough for CEOs of multi-billion companies, it's probably good enough for little old me in London who just wants to secure my career.
Wow. Were there any specific things that you noticed that changed in you before and after joining this? Was it like the confidence, the flow of conversation, how you take a critique, how you take challenging questions? Were there like specifics? Now I'm better at this because I did those experience with the improv?
Yes. And the main one was being able to quickly adapt and react to the very, very hard conversations that I was having with private equity firms when I was a PMM at the last company that I worked at. Because that used to really allow me to like tremble and be scared on these calls because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be asked a question. And it's like terrifying. So I wanted to learn the skill of how do I really quickly answer a question, but in the most effective way possible. And also the skill that I learned was being able to interact with so many different people and learn the skill of practice makes perfect. Because I think the one thing that I'd really forgotten was I expect myself to be good at things very quickly. And I think I apply that pressure on myself because I am a perfectionist. And I think if anyone is a perfectionist as well, it's really tough on ourselves because we hold ourselves back from doing anything if we're not very good at it from the get-go. And I think the one thing that improv comedy taught me was it's okay to be really crap at something at the start, but then I build the skills over this 8-week program. And also as part of it, it's in a safe community of other people who are 9-to-5ers across different industries. So allowing myself to have the grace of being like, I'm just going to improve with time and just see where this goes and have no pressure. But it allowed me to build up this resilient skill of actually cultivating an authority in the company that I worked at. Because I was communicating better, the salespeople started to like me and they started to be reactive to the work I was doing. So the knock-on effect was the sales team started to utilize and use the slide decks that I was creating, the sales enablement that I was creating, the competitive market research that I was doing for them. And therefore it had a knock-on effect, which was I was getting very good performance reviews. I got a promotion. I started to get the winnings that were outside of that. So starting from the little thing, which was I have a communication problem. Okay, let me learn improv comedy skills in order to adapt and address that problem. And then how do I use that in my work to then allow people to, how do I communicate myself on meetings so then people can start to like me and also learn that I am an authority figure within this company and I'm not just a slide deck, jockey or donkey that, they can just lean on. And then the knock-on effects were insane, Ehab. So those are the skills that come off the back of one skill. And I think it's a natural compounding vehicle, especially such a key skill, which is communication.
And what I love there is that you've seen the tangible impact almost immediately when you started to attend more and get these skills. And you see, the funny thing is sometimes we do things that are not related directly to our field of expertise, but then the positive impact is seen. Gym, for example, if you train regularly and have that clarity, it will impact your performance. Now, personally, myself, for example, I started to learn the oud, which is a musical instrument. It's an ancient one. It was the precursor to the lute, and then what we have now is the guitar. It started from the oud, so it doesn't have frets, for example. And as I'm learning now, I'm like 8 weeks in, you can't look and play. So you have to play counting on your ears with what you hear and what you feel in your fingers. So it's almost like you are meditating. You should be in flow with your body, with what you hear. It's a feeling I can't describe. It's something you feel. And the impact that had on me in these weeks that I've been doing, I noticed that I'm much calmer, much more focused, and my observation is better generally for things that probably I overlooked before. And I'm just like more relaxed and even more fun to a degree. And it's only been 8 weeks. And I was like, you wouldn't think having such, hobby or activity outside of your, career and meetings and stuff would impact your personality as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing story. And the fact that it was able to give you the skills, even within 8 weeks, which is a short period of time.
Yes,
it really is so short, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's kind of like, I always like to think of it as if someone gave me a farm or if I bought a farm, I'm not going to stand at the soil and be like, grow, I'm just going to plant the seeds. I'm going to water it. I'm going to feed it with the nutrients that it needs. And then maybe after 8 weeks, a shoot will pop out of the ground. But the fact that if you were just standing at yourself and being like, get better at communicating or relax, but the fact that the oud can do that for you, improv comedy can do it for me, and there are other different methods that people need to tap into, which is like, what is it that you can do in your downtime which allow you to have the skills and build those up naturally, so then you become a well-rounded person and individual.
Absolutely. We talked a lot about product marketing directly and indirectly throughout our conversation, and you made references to it, and it's your field, people are impacted with layoffs. And you mentioned through the conversation that people don't really understand what product marketing is, because marketing, we hear all sorts of, different marketing specialisms. So I think probably it would be helpful and useful to our viewers if you could break it down to us. What's product marketing? How does the expertise look like for people who work in it? The impact it delivers? Is there different specialisms within it?
So product marketing is its own standalone function. So we either work under product or under marketing. And what we do is we help enable the product marketing manager to build the features that the market and the customer actually needs we do competitive intel. So we will look across competitors and see what features they're building, what is in their roadmap, where is their visionary take, and where are they going. We will do market research. That will include customer interviews. So sometimes PMMs are known as the voice of the customer, quite rightfully, because we conduct customer interviews that are not in line with bugs and the customer interviews that the product manager will do. But actually ours is more around, what are their needs? What are they finding valuable? What was their aha moment? Or if they're churning, why are they churning? Where are they going? Or if we've just won them and they're a huge enterprise account, we will do a win interview. So there's win-loss interviews that we will conduct. So a win interview will be like, why did you pick us? Who are you comparing us against? Why was it that we won your account, et cetera, et cetera. And then learning how we can then expand an account. And then we take those learnings and work across multiple different teams in order to enable them to then work. So some people refer to the product marketing manager as the quarterback in football. So where we're just throwing information to other teams that they can then utilize to do their jobs better, to effectively either close more deals or to lose less deals. And what I find super imperative is we do much more than just competitive intel, market research, customer interviews. We do positioning work. So positioning is where the company or the feature or the actual product within the company needs to be positioned and known for a specific thing. And therefore, we will do a positioning workshop that works across multiple different teams to then create the basically, how do we present this within the market so then it has the cut through that we want? And therefore, what is the messaging that we then need to create? So then a PMM will go away and create a message house, which a message house is a framework that we would then create. So then, for example, a message house will say, what are the words that we use for this specific product? What are the words and the keywords that we know works? And we'll close more deals because we've done the market research, we've done the customer analysis. And therefore, when it comes to a new salesperson coming in or the salesperson doing their decks or conducting demos and doing customer prospect calls, then we're there and we're able to say, this is how our messaging should be relayed to prospective customers to close their deals. So then if a salesperson is like, nah, I don't like that messaging, it can completely turn the product into something else, because the salesperson can be like, oh, we're selling this product, but they have messaged it completely differently to how it is, and therefore they've missold this feature or this product, and then the customer comes on board and they're like, this is not what the salesperson sold me, and then they churn. So basically we keep everything in line. We are like the foundational piece that works across sales, marketing, product, customer support. Even our execs usually should come to the PMM and speak to the head or the director or the VP of product marketing specifically for this information, because we do the work that every other team they don't have the time to do. And also they just don't have the intel or the bandwidth or the know-with-all to actually deep dive into these topics that we do. So basically, we will find the information if the salesperson doesn't know why people are churning, or if they're trying to attract more enterprise organizations. We will do the research and we will do the work in order to allow them to do their jobs most effectively, which is why that there is a huge debate within product marketing, which is, are we product marketers? Because there is a debate where some people say we are business strategists. Other people say we are not even marketers whatsoever. I personally, when in the YouTube videos that I've created, I say that we are a consultant. We should have a consultative mindset. We are a product marketing manager, but we should have a consultative mindset, which is, what is the problem that the company is facing right now? Or if there isn't a problem, what is it that they are doing very well that we can do more of? And therefore, how do we exacerbate it? How do we scale it? Or if there is a problem, what is the problem? How do we get to the root of it? And therefore, how do we address it? Do we need to do another positioning workshop? Do we need to readdress the messaging? Maybe the messaging isn't resonating with the market, and therefore maybe that's the problem. Or is it the fact that the feature just isn't useful to anyone, and therefore we can stop that and hit a pause on that and actually create a new feature and then change the roadmap for the better. So basically, we are that consultative person internally that works across so many different teams.
Okay, so this type of role, is it mainly common in the tech industry, or is it across industry? So you could have product marketer for companies that not necessarily bring out technical solutions.
Yes, you can. So I speak about it because I've been in tech for over 10 years, but I know that there are PMMs who work B2C, for example. So they will implement the exact same strategies and frameworks to physical products that will have the exact same impact. Because at the end of the day, the main thing that we're here to do as any employee, as part of any organization across any industry, is to add more value, make more ARR, or to decrease churn. And ultimately, a product marketing manager can do that across any different industry and any different product. So whether it's B2C, B2B, I even worked B2G, which was business to government in a previous firm that I worked at. The principles still remain true. You
said at the beginning and throughout of this, product marketers, and now that we explained what their specialty is, what their expertise is, they need to work on their personal branding, but also upskill, because the moment comes in and they want to branch out and build their career, they need to have wider set of skills rather than maybe the niche skill for the company they work for. For 2025, are there certain skill sets, certifications, programs that a good product marketer should learn to enhance their career?
So I want to distinguish. I'm a big fan of people specializing when it comes to a specific industry. So, for example, if they're a PMM within fintech or legal tech, and that's the route that they want to go down and want to be known for the rest of their career, do it. But when it comes to, for example, they're a product marketing manager at a specific company and they only know the ways and the workings of Google, for example, because they've been there for 10 years, then this is where I'm like, it might be worth you learning from other PMMs who are outside of the world and the bubble that you're in. So, for example, mid-market PMMs or even PMMs at startups. So I would recommend people look at what is the 10-year goal? Where do I want to be? And also, so that's the proactive nature. And then I couple that with the reactive nature. So, for example, you speak about this a lot, Ehab, which is super useful, AI.
Yes.
And how to utilize tools in order to be more proficient within your company. And especially you speak about Microsoft a lot, and there are other tools that people can use. So I would recommend people actually do, again, a bit of an audit and say, what is it that I'm lacking right now? What is the information that maybe is coming up in these podcasts, in the conferences that I'm attending, that is not resonating with me because I don't know it right now, but what is it that I can delve into deeper? What are the books that I need to read? What are the courses I need to take? So for product marketing managers specifically, there isn't a set course or a set book, I'll be real. There are like the key ones that we always go to, especially on positioning and messaging and whatnot. But when it comes to future-proofing your career, especially within tech, I recommend jumping in and learning about AI and learning about building your personal brand and learning about leverage. So I have a huge hypothesis for what will happen to employees, especially within tech. Do you want to hear it? Please
do. Is it related to AI?
No, it's related to leverage, actually.
Okay. Yeah, let's hear it.
So one of the things I was thinking about at the start of last year when I started posting relentlessly on LinkedIn was I was naturally building up an audience of product marketing managers, which was a byproduct of me aiming for the recruiters I was trying to attract.
Okay.
Now, I was like, I always wanted to be an employee, bear in mind, up until 6 months ago like 3 months ago when I quit my job, I always wanted to be an employee because I like the stability. I like the medical, health benefits that came with it, the private stuff.
Yeah, sure.
So I was realizing if I can build up a pool or an audience that I can keep warm and really like me and really trust me, then I can use that as leverage as part of a negotiation for an organization who typically, a lot of tech organizations right now, they have extremely high CAC, so cost of acquisition, to acquire a customer. And it's only going to go up with time. So CAC is only going to go up with time. It's going to be more expensive to acquire a customer. And as a tech organization scales with time, they're only going to hit colder and colder audiences, meaning it's only going to get colder and more expensive with time. Now, I thought, well, if I build up a pool of 35,000 plus PMMs that I could then take to an organization that I would work at, then they could tap into my audience and I can negotiate a higher salary because they would be able to tap into my audience that I could then take with me from job to job to job. And I tested this out. So I reached out to the CMO at a competitive intel tool that is very well known and used by PMMs. And I pitched her that idea, which was if you hire me at a much higher salary that is expected for a PMM in London, in the UK, and I could then showcase the product and what I'm working on and basically doing a build in public for the PMMs who are in my network, who want to learn from me and who do really like me and like what I have to say, then they're actually tapping into an audience that they would never have been able to tap into, or if they could, it would be very expensive for them. So I think that's the route that employees can go down, because there's a lot of people out here that are misinformed with personal branding. They think personal branding are for CEOs or executives or people who want to build out their own company. Now, for people like myself and other people who didn't feel comfortable being their own, boss or being self-employed, and they want the stability of having a career that they can then leverage over time to earn the 400 to 500Ks salary.
Yeah.
That they can actually build an audience at the exact same time and use that as leverage for their career, so then they can secure their career through that. And that's just one little piece of the strategy that I was putting together for myself. But that's a hypothesis that I have for the future of what people in tech and also across a lot of industries can do for themselves to secure their careers.
I think this is a brilliant observation and a strategy you have, because thinking about it myself, the people who follow my content, they are decision makers in their organizations. So what I'm putting out there, even though it's not the intention, but it's lead generation, isn't it? And when you were describing this, do you think, reach and impact and impressions should be on the CV? Because it's a great leverage for the employer later on.
Oh my gosh, yes, 100%. It should definitely be on the CV, especially if you're applying to a company that is looking for your audience. And this is, again, how you bypass cold applying to jobs, because then EHAB, one step further, is actually including your reach and your audience as part of a message that you want to send to a specific person. So you have a very specific person within a specific software tool or tech company that would love to have your audience, would love to have your eyeballs, and maybe they would even sponsor you. However, if you wanted to be an employee there, then you can use that as a talking point.
Oh, amazing. You mentioned AI briefly in your conversation. Do you have any experience so far with it? Do you have any concerns? How do you feel about it, either way, positively or negatively? And this is, to be honest with you, a question that I asked pretty much all the guests, because AI is kind of overlapping in all different conversations, and people have interesting and varied views on it.
Yeah, I have seen it start to trickle into product marketing specifically, where I can see some software tools are trying to replace product marketing managers in specific ways that we work. So in that regard, I'm like, well, we'll see how built out and how fleshed out that software can be, because ultimately I think so long as we keep the element of taste and the element of creativity that AI cannot replace, that so long as we can utilize these tools in order to be effective, I think that's the way that we can really retain and make sure that we're secure. However, I think the one thing that kind of keeps me up a little bit at night is the fact that PMMs, we are riddled with imposter syndrome. So we typically have a lot of imposter syndrome, and we hold ourselves back a lot from learning about new things. And what scares me is the PMMs who are out there who are just working, doing it as normal, and they're not utilizing any of these tools, or the organization that they work at hasn't given them explicit authority or, just approval to use AI tools. So then it's the case of the organization that they're working at, which is hindering them learning on the job, which again becomes a talking point, which is how do you then use time outside of the company that you're working at to then learn these skills and to use these tools in a way that will enable you to retain the information, so then you can take it to a new organization. Because I think a lot of people wait for permission. As I was mentioning earlier, we're a very permission-based society where they wait for permission from their boss or their manager to work on AI tools or to implement certain ways to be more effective, when actually it should be a case of, even if they say no to you within your company, utilizing the time in your downtime to work on it. So I personally don't have a fear on it because I use AI tools here and there, and I make it as part, I try and like operationalize what I do, especially now as a content creator. Try and operationalize as much of it as I can.
Specific ones, Hattie? Any specific tools that you like that you've been experimenting with?
So it's funny because I was using OpenAI before ChatGPT came about. So I was actually using one of my friends, Danny Richmond, who's an amazing mentor and coach. He taught me how to utilize OpenAI with Excel spreadsheets. So then you can actually use the code of AI in order to just make spreadsheets work more effectively and give you an output that you want. Okay. So I was actually experimenting with that maybe 7 years ago. And then my ex, who's a very well-known software developer in the React space, started to delve into AI, and I started to learn about the actual implementation from the code side around AI, which was super fascinating because then I spoke about actually building out our own specific LLM for our organization maybe 5 years ago. And the organization was like, Hattie, what the hell are you talking about? And now it's so funny because now it's like that is the go-to, where you have a specific LLM which is trained on the information that you then share with it, and therefore it doesn't train other models with your very specific, very confidential information, which is really fun. So apart from like actually learning about the theory and implementing it, or trying to implement it within the company, I now use it as part of, for example, video creation, and just as part of the tools that I pay for. But I do pay for ChatGPT, and I have my own GPT on there that is private, that I have trained up, that I use also. That I use also for my own content creation, actually, because sometimes I do hit a blocker. Because the one thing that I love about content creation, especially writing on LinkedIn, is it makes me a better writer. It makes me a better thinker. So sometimes I don't want to fully outsource the thinking and the writing to GPT right now, because I'm like, I still want to improve, because if there comes a time, or when there becomes a time that I want to write a book, I do want to be the person who's writing it. So I have my own GPT that enables me to just tap into it, and I've fed it so much information that it is kind of like my second brain. So if I'm really stuck for time, I'm like, let me use this thing. But apart from that, I use the AI features as part of other tools.
Oh, amazing. So you talked about the content creation side of things, and you're spending time on that. And I would like also to chat to you about your new community that you are launching. By the time this podcast will be out, it will be made available to your community. So it would be good to see what it is about, what are you looking to achieve with it, and is this going to be your main focus now, to build up your community and content creation? Are you looking to do your own thing in the market, or is that your main focus for this year?
Oh, it is 100% my main focus, and I'm so excited. So yes, I'm launching productmarketers.com, which is a community for product marketing managers to secure their careers through building their internal authority through their personal brand, and also their external personal brand through LinkedIn. And I'm super excited to create a place that we can all hang out and have a empowering, encouraging place to learn these strategic takes, because I'm telling you, what I've just said on this podcast is just like 1% or 0.5% of the strategy that I was putting into place, because it's not just a game of posting and hoping that it sticks, but it's actually, if you do want to hit specific goals, or if you want to speed up how fast you can hit specific goals by like 3 years, 5 years, there is a strategy that you can have in place, so long as you're committed, you're determined, you're proactive, and you're no longer willing to allow your career to be dictated by a person in a company who will just let you go the minute that they want to boost EBITDA and profit margins, right? So I just feel like I needed this. I really needed this a year ago when I was building my personal brand. And a lot of people are too afraid to speak or to have a voice or to know what to say without pissing off their managers or their employers right now, that they're so scared, they're just holding themselves back. And ironically, this is now the exact same time to be loud. You have to be loud in this environment if you want to survive what is happening outside of our control. Control what you can control. And yeah, that's why I'm like, has to be my 100% focus, because at the time when I was working for my previous firm, when I was a full-time employee, I thought I could do both at the same time. But then there was a point where I was like, I am burning out. Like, I'm firmly burning out and I can't do both. So I was like, you know what, let me back myself. Let me go all in, build out this community and build what I needed for me a year ago.
Wow. How long you've been prepping for this? The behind the scenes before the launch?
So the behind the scenes has been 6 months. And I announced that there would be a community 3 months ago. So I have taken my time, because I think the one thing about me, which is really good, is I have spent so much money on other people's communities. Like, I've spent over £10,000 on people's communities in the last 3 to 4 months, which has enabled me to learn what I personally like and what I really dislike. And learning that actually the highest leverage thing that I can do is to create a community, a product that is really, really good. And having learned that it takes time in order to build something very, very good. And you would know, because you put out so many YouTube videos, like all of the research, all of the time that goes into editing, all of the prep, all of the time, like re-recording specific bits. For me, a community is the exact same. It's like, what are these tiny, intricate steps, these tiny, intricate details that make a community exceptional? Luckily, last year, I was throwing my own London meetups for product marketing managers. So in real life, we were meeting at a mini golf place, a little bar in London, where we would all meet, share our war stories, have a conversation. And through that, I started to learn about what I really liked as part of those conversations that I could then replicate online. So if anything, I love meeting people in real life. And I think there's a symbiotic nature between having the in real life, like meetups, that I love to meet other PMMs over dinner. Whenever I'm in a new city, I'll be like, hey, I'm in Portugal. Anyone free to meet up in Lisbon? And then people will. So for me, an online community that I'm building through productmarketers.com is just a replication of everything that I've loved through in real life, and also the other online communities that I'm part of.
Okay, so it's a global community rather than only UK focused.
Yes, yeah, because I've been asked by a lot of PMMs, especially in India, Nigeria, Canada, America, that they're like, I want to attend, but, so I'm like, okay, let's try and replicate the same feeling, the same high energy feeling, but online.
Amazing. I'm sure it will be a hit and big success. Looking forward to hear, the good news from you and the achievements your community gets by joining up. One question, Hattie, that I ask all the guests is, and you've already beaten us to this by giving us 2 book recommendations. Do you have other book recommendations that you like people to have on their reading list for 2025? Whether, related to the product marketing, novels, or personal development books that have impacted you?
Honestly, I have to give another shout out to Self-Compassion by Kristin Neff. Because, I found it very, very hard to have a kind inner voice in my head. I found it very, very hard to give myself the grace of just going through life and just flowing down and being kind to myself. Okay. So as a kid of 2 immigrants that moved to London, who very much installed into me from a very young age that I am here because they made the sacrifice and the goal is make something of your life. Okay. It was very, very firmly drilled into me from a young age that I'm here to work and I'm here to create good stuff. And my feelings don't matter. And because my feelings don't matter, it's all about execution. It's all about output. What they really cared was what my grades were. And they cared about, me being the lead performer in a little play at school, right? All of this like external validation.
I can't relate to that, Hattie.
It's tough, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate. And as part of that, I just wasn't kind to myself internally. For majority of my life, I was just like, fuck feeling sad, just keep moving, like keep going, until I had a full-on breakdown when my previous long-term relationship ended. Okay. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I liked. I felt like I didn't have any friends because he was the center of my world. And out of that, I really beat myself up. To a point where I was like, I need help. Like, I need someone to speak to. I need to just vocalize this. And this is why I feel I feel like a lot of similarities with men, where a lot of men that I know find it very hard to share their emotions. And I'm like, dude, that's me. Like, I'm like, I don't know how, but like, I just found it so hard. So for some reason, reading that book about self-compassion, which I was like, compassion for what? I was like, what? So then I read it and it blew my mind. Like I read it. I listened to the audiobook. I listened to it 2 more times, literally within a month. I was like, I don't know what this is doing, but it's allowing me to be kind to myself. It's as good, if not better, than the therapist that I'd paid for, because for some reason it just tapped into exactly what I needed to hear, which was to be kind to myself. And funnily enough, being kind to myself and being compassionate to myself has enabled me to be way more productive than I was when I was being hard on myself. When I was beating myself and being like, go, do. I was not as productive as I am now, which is like, I allow myself to be creative. I allow myself to carve out time to work on specific things. I allow myself to watch Netflix if I want to rest, because I see everything as part of a holistic take of being productive, but also just enjoying life, which like I just didn't even feel like I could enjoy life, which was wild. And I think it's hard, especially on the breadwinners, men or women, who are family people and they have kids and they have responsibilities and they're like, I just need to focus on the doing. And it's like, dude, if you just took a minute and you were compassionate and you learned about compassion, you would be so much more effective. This is why I watch, in my downtimes, I watch a lot of sports documentaries. The last one that I watched, I'm a huge fan of sports documentaries, especially when it's biographies on people's lives. So for example, Michael Jordan with Last Dance, on how he was, exceptional.
Brilliant, yeah, I've seen it, yeah,
brilliant, yeah. And learning about the mental, like the building up your mental resilience as well as your physical. So I watched one about Aaron Rodgers recently, who's a quarterback, and it was exceptional to learn about him. He was brought into a very religious household, which was similar to me, and he was told to just kind of put his feelings aside and just do. And later in life, he started to really delve into the holistic side and the spiritual side of himself. And then he brought that to the leadership. So it was funny because as part of his Netflix documentary, which is called Enigma, which I highly recommend everyone watch. It's only 3 hours long in terms of 3 episodes. That one of the episodes was saying, it actually interviewed his colleagues, his teammates on his team, and they were like, he used to be so hard ass on us, and then the minute he started working on himself spiritually and being compassionate to himself and learning about the divine feminine and masculine and implementing that into his life, which, bear in mind, this is a football guy, right? So he implemented that spiritual side. He was like, his teammates were like, he now comes to us with such compassion and care that we show up better. We show up harder. We are winning Super Bowls. Like, we show up as the best teammates ever because he leads with compassion. He leads with care. So in some ways, and this is why I drill it into my male friends, because I'm like, my girlies, they get it. Like, they're cool. Yeah. They're like, they're in their feminine element. Yes. With the guys where I feel more kind of aligned with, where I'm like, dude, if you were just kind to yourself, you would be a better husband, you would be a better colleague, you would be a better leader, and I'm telling you, everything would work for you. So it's so funny how like usually the byproduct of all of the crap that happens in our lives is typically because we have such trauma or trigger from childhood that we just need to address. And for me, compassion opens so many doors. Ehab, I cannot say how big it is, and I recommend everyone delve into it.
I'm definitely watching Enigma and adding the book as well to my reading list. It's, you know, all you described. I was watching a podcast with an Egyptian director and a poet. So his songs were like the main, you know, top pop hits throughout the late 90s, 2000s until now. So he's quite well known for people who follow the scene. And he was going through a journey similar to what you're describing. And he said, at one moment he was, I think, in LA, and he was going through his weight loss journey, watching what he eats, you know, staying healthy to rebuild himself. And he said, for the past 10 years, every trip I make, I only buy gifts for my children and my wife. And I never buy anything, even if it's little, to treat myself. So part of his new way of life, I'll buy the gifts for everyone, but I also treat myself for a little thing, just to show that care, you know, the self-care for him as well.
I love that. I think that's like a perfect example, because when I came out of my long-term relationship, I had realized that I had lost myself because I really didn't love myself. I really didn't. And I didn't even know how to love myself. I was reliant on being with a boyfriend in order for them to love me. And therefore, if they loved me, that's how I had my value, which is really, really messed up. Yes. Now, I'm telling you, the minute I started, so I hired a therapist off the back of it, as specifically revolved around this issue. And we delved deep into how do I then now love myself and build up that skill, and what does that look like? The one thing that I loved receiving, for example, was flowers. I loved receiving flowers from my ex-boyfriend, and I started to buy my own flowers, right? And something as simple as that, which is like I buy my own flowers and it makes me so happy and it gives me the self-care and the love that I have, shows up in every area of my life. It's now, because I've learned how to love myself, and exactly the same as the Egyptian poet, which is like he starts to gift himself, then it builds up a confidence level where, for example, if a colleague was speaking to me with a disrespectful tone, I was able to stand up to it way more professionally, and I was able to stand up to it full stop, because I know that I respect myself and I love myself in my downtime. And sometimes it is a case of, who are you in your downtime? And is that congruent with the life that you want to lead? Because especially with personal brand, a lot of people show up very perfectly. Oh, they look stunning in every holiday photo. Oh, they look like they're killing it in their life, right? But then if you go back, or they're not, right? Like maybe in their, and this is why I personally don't trust anyone who posts like happy marriage photos, because I'm you argue, dude. Dude, don't. You argue. We all argue. We have like problems, you know,
ups and downs,
ebbs and flows. They are there. So for me, there was no congruence. Like my flat was a mess. I was sad. I was just like, I didn't know how to love myself. But if you had spoken to me, or if you had just seen my profile on LinkedIn, it would have been like, oh, she's great. You know, she lives in London. She's doing her thing. You know, it's great. When I was just broken inside. So learning how to like love yourself and be compassionate and show yourself that care that maybe your parents didn't give you, or your school teachers didn't give you, or whatever it, you know, needs filling, shows up in so many areas of your life. So right now I have such high standards for how I work internally, but also how I treat others. It was so funny. Learning about compassion actually made me a very good customer interviewer when I was a product marketing manager, because I could be way more empathetic to what their needs were, because I was so much more compassionate to what their problems were. And then I would delve deep into it. Where previously maybe I'd ask them, so what do you want from this feature? I'd be like, so how's your manager treating you? Like, how's it going in your job? Or problems that you're facing. And then I get to the root issue of like, what are they actually facing right now? And therefore, how does our software solve the problem of this person's life or their career, or what is happening within their team that maybe is like at complete jeopardy? And therefore, what is the feature build that we need in order to make their life so much better?
Yes.
It has a profound impact the minute you start to like learn how to do that. At least it has for my life. So I'll only speak for me.
Absolutely. And I think, to be honest with you, now there is an epidemic of people, especially young people, who are living their lives for others, not themselves, because of social media. We are so consumed by showing that we are having fun rather than actually having fun. And I've seen some photos and memes. I don't know if you've seen them on Facebook. People post them like a New Year's celebration or a performance. And there is a lady in the middle who's in her 80s, I would presume, and there are, other generations, typically younger ones around her. Everyone is so concerned by having their phone out, sharing that moment, and the lady is sitting, enjoying. She's actually feeling it, having that happiness moment for herself, rather than worrying, I'm making a story and I'm posting this. And I think, to be honest, the social media, how amazing it is, and we see the positive aspects of personal branding, but on the personal use element, and when you talked also about men not expressing themselves and not communicating, there is also that bombardment on social media about that unreasonable wealth and living that high-end, high-speed, luxurious life. And in many cases, people fake it. It's not even real, but it's adding that unreal, pressure of perceived success. Like, I was talking to a friend and I said, when I grew up, the people you speak with are typically your family, friends, your neighbors, your areas. And when they celebrate something, probably once every 6 months, someone graduated, someone got married, someone bought a new car. So life continues, and then you celebrate something. So you don't really feel underachieving because it's normal life. But now on social media, you see someone buying a new car every other minute, and someone going to that luxurious happy holiday every single minute. And it takes a lot of character not to fall for this and impact your mental health because of what you see.
100%. Even a year ago, I had to surround myself with people on New Year's Eve and on Christmas. And at this New Year's Eve party a year ago, so like technically 2 years ago, I hated it. I was surrounded by people and I was like, I feel so alone. So literally, a month ago, so at the end of 2024, I was alone on Christmas and I was alone on New Year's Eve, and I was the happiest I've ever been, Ehab. I was so happy. And I posted about that on LinkedIn. I said, I'm alone this year. It's the second year I'm going to be alone. However, especially on Christmas. However, this is the happiest I've ever been because I have built the character. I built the inner resilience that I'm like, I don't compare myself to anyone. And again, this came from like self-compassion and self-love work. But to get to that point, it takes a lot of like, I'm telling you, it's not easy. Like I had a lot of tears, a lot of like shit came up with therapists. I felt drained, like physically drained, Ehab, at the end of every session with this therapist for like a straight 2 months. I had this weekly, and I was like, I towards the end of the 2 months, I had such a headache on the sides because I'd crying so much that I was like, I don't think I can do this. Like, I really don't. And he was like, just keep going. I swear, like, I feel like we're on the cusp of like a breakthrough. Like we're nearly there. Until, we finally like delved into everything. That was like, wow. So even now when I see people achieving so much and doing everything, I'm genuinely grateful for them, and I'm so happy for them, and I'm grateful that they're sharing it because I'm like, this is beautiful. I love it. And that's why I love LinkedIn so much, because it's actually one of the last platforms that we have that's actually positive.
Let's hope it stays like that, because sometimes I see the Twitter vibe and Instagram gets to it slowly. Hopefully it doesn't propagate that much.
I know, hopefully it stays, because even up till maybe 5 years ago, I used to get so incredibly envious. Envious and jealous are two completely different things. I think envy is the one where you don't want. No, I think envy is the one where you want what the other person has, but jealous is the one where you want what the person has, but you don't want them to have it. I think that's the distinguished factor.
All right. Okay.
So what I've learned is it's actually healthy to feel, you want what someone has. But at the time, for some reason, I don't know if it was scarcity mindset, over 5 years ago or something, where I was like, why do they have it? I should have it. Blah, blah, blah. Like this entitled mentality. Like, what the hell?
True.
So now, having done the inner work, I was like, yeah, I feel genuine happiness for everyone. I think that's why I've been able to cultivate like a genuine, authentic friendship group and a genuine community, because I'm actually like, we all need to crush it. We all can like deserve to be happy.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, I feel like life is so short, and I'm reminded of this constantly, week on week. The amount of people that I know who are going through stuff in their life is crazy. So I'm just like, have this kind reminder that I'm like, I wake up and I'm like grateful. I'm like, thank you, God, that I'm still here and I'm still like able to have an impact and I'm able to like breathe and just enjoy life. And I feel like more people just need to be reminded of that. It's not about what another person has that you really just are jealous of or envious of, whatever the word is. I keep forgetting which one it is. But it's just about like, what do you have right now that you can be grateful for? And therefore, how can that motivate you to keep it and just keep moving forward and live the best life? So you live that self-actualized life at the end of your life. I think that, at least for me, is like my goal, to be as self-actualized as I can.
Yeah, I completely, on that same wavelength. And I think when you reach that stage, when you wish good and well for everyone and you are happy with what you have, if you're looking to get something, you work for it, you're not entitled. I think that's when you reach peace, really. And it takes a lot of maturity and hard, self-critique, self-work, improvement, and self-care, like you said, together. And that's where you reach that moment of peace. But you know what? I think this is probably one of the... how should I describe it? A podcast that people get the value both on their career and also on their personal life as well, because you've been really transparent, open, and it's not easy to do that. So I really do thank you for that, Hattie.
Oh, thank you so much, Ehab, and I hope this helps at least one person.
Absolutely. Is there anything that you would like us to chat about, discuss, that we haven't brought up so far?
No, I feel like everyone should just keep crushing it. I think, listening to this podcast, for example, is an amazing, amazing use of time. So keep listening to the guests. I'm excited to see who else you have on. And yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Amazing. Thank you, Hattie. Thank you all for watching. See you next time.